Well, hey there, listening squirrels. It may take all night for this to upload, and this is Sunday afternoon at about 3:56. I ended my live early because it was so hot. So my little one, Juliet, is doing a surprise cleanup in their room, in the girls' room. Look, here's my Juliet. Come here. This is not live, it's a video. Here's my Jewel. She'll be 10. August 8, 10, 12. That's her birthday. August the 10th.
Yeah.
You'll be 10.
Mm-hmm.
How about that?
Yeah.
I just told them what you were doing.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I heard you talking and I was like, what are you doing back here? Thought you were talking to me for a second. Anyways, I'm gonna go work on my thing.
You still working?
Yeah.
All right, darling.
Talk to you later.
Okay, baby. Love you.
Love you too.
I just squished her a while ago. This LYKKE brand, I finally found out how to pronounce it. The lady that runs or works, I'm not sure what, I think she was just working there. I said, how do you pronounce this? She said, nobody ever knew until a lady from Norway came in the shop and she said, how do you pronounce it? And you gotta be from there, I'm sure, but it's Lu. She said, when you breathe out, it's Lu. 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 So Luca is the closest we can get. Closest we can probably get to it. Luca. Luca. So there you go. And I have one of these too. This is a knitting needle set. And then I got a ginger set, but I think the ginger set was something else. So, y'all know I do this. This is the show I do all the time. But guess what? I told y'all before. Crochet Creations by Christy. This is the next project. So, yay! So, I've been working on it a little bit. I took a picture of this, maybe. Oh, I put it on her Facebook. So, I probably ought to put it on community tab or something. But I'm using, I said hometown the other day. It's totally not as homespun. But homespun when you knit it. And the color is Waterfall. Waterfall Cascade. That's what it is. Or is it Waterfall and Cascades what it is in another language? Because a cascade would be a waterfall, wouldn't it? Is that redundant? But anyway, I wanted to use fat yarn and big needles. These are size 15. I'm pretty sure I showed you that on one of the lives. Maybe so. But we're here to... I may come on with another video just called... Everybody's out of the room right now. It's so hard to catch. And I'm glad because, you know, we're here with the fam. But when it's... Hopefully y'all can't hear the TV that's on in the other room. But, you know, to catch it when it's quiet and all. So I thought I'd do this, but... I think I'll come on with just a real short video showing and telling what I got at the spinnery, the Smoky Mountain Spinnery. But well, I'm sure to be going again. Okay, I told y'all also that this, what Mrs. McGillicuddy saw, is also entitled, what is it entitled? 450 from Paddington. So here we go. I feel like I'm good and awake, but we'll see how long that lasts if I read myself to sleep. Check out my Tom and Jerry $1.25 plus ow. They're $5. I like my $5 t-shirts. Oh, how come? Where is my... Wait a minute. I'm not seeing my... Here it is. A bookmark. We're on part 2 of chapter 5. After tea, Lucy rose. Forgot to bring a drink. I have to do without. I'll be getting back, she said. As I've already told you, there's no one actually living at Rutherford Hall who could be the man we're looking for. There's only an old man and a middle-aged woman and an old deaf gardener. I didn't say he was actually living there, said Miss Marple. All I mean is that he's someone who knows Rutherford Hall very well, but we can go into that after you've found the body. You seem to assume quite confidently that I shall find it, said Lucy. I don't feel nearly so optimistic. I'm sure you will succeed, my dear Lucy. You're such an efficient person. In some ways, but I haven't had an experience in looking for bodies. I'm sure all it needs is a little common sense, said Miss Marple encouragingly. Lucy looked at her, then laughed. Miss Marple smiled back at her. Lucy set to work systematically the next afternoon. She poked round outhouses, prodded the briars which wreathed the old pigsties, and was peering into the boiler room under the greenhouse when she heard a dry cough and turned to find old Hillman, the gardener, looking at her disapprovingly. You be careful you don't get a nasty fall, miss, he warned her. Them steps isn't safe. And you was up in the loft just now, and the floor there ain't safe neither. Lucy was careful to display no embarrassment. I expect you think I'm very nosy, she said cheerfully. I was just wondering if something could be made out of this place. Growing mushrooms for the market, that sort of thing. Everything seems to have been let go terribly. That's the master, that is. Won't spend a penny. Ought to have 2 men and a boy here. I ought to keep the place proper, but I won't hear of it. But won't hear of it, he won't. Had all I could do to make him get a mower. Wanted to mow all that front grass by hand, he did. But if the place could be made to pay with some repairs, won't get a place like this to pay. Too far gone, and he wouldn't care about that anyway. He only cares about saving. Knows well enough what'll happen after he's gone. The young gentlemen'll sell up as fast as they can. Only waiting for him to pop off, they are. Going to come into a tidy lot of money when he dies, so I've heard. I suppose he's a very rich man, said Lucy. Krakenthorpe's fancies, that's what they are. The old gentleman started it. Wait a minute. Yeah. Mr. Krakenthorpe's father, a sharp one he was, by all accounts, made his fortune and built this place. Hard as nails, they say, and never forgot an injury. But with all that, he was open-handed. Nothing of the miser about him. Disappointed in both his sons, so the story goes. Give 'em an education and brought 'em up to be gentlemen, Oxford and all. But they were too much of gentlemen to want to go into business. The younger one married an actress and then smashed himself up in a car accident when he'd been drinking. The elder one, our one here, his father never fancied so much. Abroad a lot he was. Bought a lot of heathen statues and had them sent home. Wasn't so close with his money when he was young. Come on him more in middle age, it did. No, they never did hit it off, him and his father, so I've heard. Lucy digested this information with an air of polite interest. The old man leaned against the wall and prepared to go on with his saga. He much preferred talking to doing any work. Died before the war, the old gentleman did. Terrible temper he had. Didn't do to give him any cause. He wouldn't stand for it. And after he died, this Mr. Krakenthorpe came and lived here? Him and his family, yes. Not grown up, they was by then. But surely, I see you mean the 1914 war. No, I don't. Died in 1928, that's what I mean. Lucy supposed that 1928 qualified as before the war, though it was not the way she would have described it herself. She said, "Well, I expect you'll be wanting to go on with your work. You mustn't let me keep you." "Ah," said old Hillman without any enthusiasm. "Not much you can do this time of day. Light's too bad." Lucy went back to the house, pausing to investigate a likely looking copse of birch and azalea on her way. She found Emma Krakenthorpe standing in the hall reading a letter. The afternoon post had just been delivered. "My nephew will be here tomorrow with a school friend. Alexander's room is the one over the porch. The one next to it will do for James Stoddard West. They'll use the bathroom just opposite." "Yes, Miss Krakenthorpe, I'll see the rooms are prepared." "They'll arrive in the morning before lunch." She hesitated. "I expect they'll be hungry." "I bet they will," said Lucy. "Roast beef, do you think? And perhaps treacle tart?" "Alexander's very fond of treacle tart." The two boys arrived on the following morning. They both had well-brushed hair, suspiciously angelic faces, and perfect manners. Alexander Eastley had fair hair and blue eyes. Stoddard West was dark and spectacled. They discoursed gravely during lunch on events in the sporting world, with occasional references to the latest space fiction. Their manner was that of elderly professors discussing Paleolithic implements. In comparison with them, Lucy felt quite young. The sirloin of beef vanished in no time, and every crumb of treacle tart was consumed. Mr. Krakenthorpe grumbled, "You two will eat me out of house and home." Alexander gave him a blue-eyed, reproving glance. "We'll have bread and cheese if you can afford meat, Grandfather." "Afford it? I can afford it. I just don't like waste." "We haven't wasted any, sir," said Stoddard West, looking down at his place, which bore clear testimony of that fact. "You boys both eat twice as much as I do. We're at the bodybuilding stage," Alexander explained. "We need a big intake of proteins." The old man grunted. As the two boys left the table, Lucy heard Alexander say apologetically to his friend, "You mustn't pay any attention to my grandfather. He's on a diet or something, and that makes him rather peculiar. He's terribly mean, too. I think it must be a complex of some kind." Stoddard West said comprehendingly, "I had an aunt who kept thinking she was going bankrupt. Really, she had oodles of money. Pathological, the doctor said. Have you got that football, Alex?" After she cleared away and washed up lunch, Lucy went out. She could hear the boys calling out in the distance on the lawn. She herself went in the opposite direction, down the front drive, and from there she struck across to some clumped masses of rhododendron bushes. She began to hunt carefully, holding back the leaves and peering inside. She moved from clump to clump systematically and was raking inside with a golf club when the polite voice of Alexander Eastley made her start. "Are you looking for something, Miss Isles?" I probably say it differently each time. "Islesborough?" "A golf ball," said Lucy promptly. "Several golf balls, in fact. I've been practicing golf shots most afternoons, and I've lost quite a lot of balls. I thought that today I really must find some of them." "We'll help you," said Alexander obligingly. "That's very kind of you. I thought you were playing football." One can't go on playing footer," explained Stoddard West. "One gets too hot. Do you play a lot of golf?" "I'm quite fond of it. I don't get much opportunity." "I suppose you don't. You do the cooking here, don't you?" "Yes." "Did you cook the lunch today?" "Yes. Was it all right?" "Simply wizard," said Alexander. "We get awful meat at school, all dried up. I love beef that's pink and juicy inside. That treacle tart was pretty smashing, too. You must tell me what things you like best. Could we have apple meringue one day? It's my favorite thing." "Of course." Alexander sighed heavily. There's a clock golf set under the stairs, he said. We could fix it up on the lawn and do some putting. What about it, Stodders? Good old, said Stoddard West, O.H. He isn't really Australian, explained Alexander courteously, but he's practicing talking that way in case his people take him out to see the test match next year. Encouraged by Lucy, they went off to get the clock golf set. Later, as she returned to the house, she found them sitting it out on the lawn and arguing about the position of the numbers. We don't want it like a clock, said Stoddard West. That's kid stuff. We want to make a course of it. Long holes and short ones. It's a pity the numbers are so rusty you can hardly see them. They need a lick of white paint, said Lucy. You might get some tomorrow and paint them. Good idea, Alexander's face lit up. I say, I believe there's some old pots of paint in the long barn. Left there by the painters last haul. Shall we see? What's the long barn? Asked Lucy. Alexander pointed to a long stone building a little way from the house, near the back drive. It's quite old, he said. Grandfather calls it a leak barn and says it's Elizabethan, but that's just swank. It belonged to the farm that was here originally. My great-grandfather pulled it down and built this awful house instead. He added a lot of grandfather's collection is in the barn, things he had sent home from abroad when he was a young man. Most of them are pretty awful, too. The long barn is used sometimes for Walt's drives and things like that. Not Walt's. Witst, W-H-I-S-T. Women's Institute stuff and conservative sales of work. Come and see it. Lucy accompanied them willingly. There was a big nail-studded oak door to the barn. Alexander raised his hand and detached a key on a nail just under some ivy to the right hand of the top of the door. He turned it in the lock, pushed the door open, and they went in. At a first glance, Lucy felt that she was in a singularly bad museum. The heads of 2 Roman empires in marble glared at her out of the bulging eyeballs. There was a huge sarcophagus of a decadent Greco-Roman period. Simpering Venus stood on a pedestal clutching her falling draperies. Besides these works of art, there were a couple of trestle tables, some stacked up chairs, and sundry oddments such as a rusted hand mower, 2 buckets, a couple of moth-eaten car seats, and green-painted iron garden seat that had lost a leg. I think I saw the paint over here, said Alexander vaguely. He went to a corner and pulled aside a tattered curtain that shut it off. They found a couple of paint pots and brushes, the latter dry and stiff. You really need some turps, said Lucy. They could not, however, find any turpentine. The boy suggested bicycling off to get some, and Lucy urged them to do so. Painting the clock golf numbers would keep them amused for some time, she thought. The boys went off, leaving her in the barn. This really could do with the clear-up, she had murmured. I shouldn't bother, Alexander advised her. It gets cleaned up if it's going to be used for anything, but it's practically never used this time of year. Do I hang the key up outside the door again? Is that where it's kept? Yes, there's nothing to pinch here, you see. Nobody wants those awful marble things, and anyway, they weigh a ton. Lucy agreed with them. She could hardly admire old Mr. Krakenthorpe's taste in art, he seemed to have an unerring instinct for selecting the worst specimen of any period, she said. She stood looking round her after the boys had gone. Her eyes came to rest on the sarcophagus and stayed there. That sarcophagus. The air in the barn was faintly musty as though unaired for a long time. He went over Sorry. Thought I could read myself to sleep. That sarcophagus. The air in the barn was faintly musty as though unaired for a long time. She went over to the sarcophagus. It had a heavy, close-fitting lid. Lucy looked at it speculatively. Then she left the barn, went to the kitchen, found a heavy crowbar, and returned. It was not an easy task, but Lucy toiled doggedly. I wonder if the body's in there. It was not an easy task, but Lucy toiled doggedly. Slowly the lid began to rise and prized up by the crowbar. It rose sufficiently, the top of it, for Lucy to see what was inside, and guess what? That's the end of chapter 5. And I'm not reading anymore. I hope I'll get to read again tomorrow, but we'll just have to see what the gang's up to. So we'll be on chapter 6 next time. Alright. I hope this won't take forever and not a day to upload, but we'll see. Like I say, it's Sunday. Now it's 4:17. I'm getting ready to upload this and show you some stuff like this that I got at the Spinnery, Smoky Mountain Spinnery. Love y'all. Be sweet, don't be ugly. Bye-bye.